It's the Fightful MMA Holy Smokes podcast with Showdown Joe and Sean Ross Sapp.
Joe, we are live.
What's going on, everybody? January 23rd edition of the Holy Smokes podcast. Yours truly, Joe Ferraro. Give me a follow online at Showdown Joe. Of course, my co-host, as always, Shawn Michaels. You can give him a follow online.
Sean Ross Sapp.
Look at that
wrong
hair.
with you?
That's it. You look like Shawn Michaels. It's Shawn Ross Sapp at Shawn.
Maybe
Ross
with
Sapp.
the widow's peak I have here, like, because he's losing his hair. I was just born this way.
I didn't think he was going to jump that quickly at my Shawn Michaels reference, but there you have it. Shawn Ross Sapp. Give him a follow at Shawn.
I was a Marty Jannetty fan, Joe. You can't do that to me.
I had old magazines somewhere. I don't know if I still have them of AWA, NWA, WWF back in the day with the Rockers and stuff like that. So were they the Rockers or the Midnight Rockers?
They were both. They were the Midnight Rockers, and they became the Rockers.
There you go. We'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to preview UFC on Charlotte. We'll have a bunch of pro picks giving their thoughts. Valentina Shevchenko will be joining us a little bit later on. Anderson Silva, as you all know, if you haven't heard yet, he's denying any sort of steroids allegations. Do you guys know that if you go online, you can get a UFC Super Fight belt? It's for sale. It makes me sad when I see that kind of stuff. Right before we came on air, Sean Ross Sapp and I discussed Francisco Rivera's suspension. 4 years by USADA. Does it really mean anything? We'll see. Yeah, Khabib and Ferguson. That's been scheduled. What does this mean for Conor McGregor? What does it all mean in general? Paul Daley blasts Bellator. Robert Whittaker, staph infection. Did you hear about that? That is not a good scenario, ladies and gentlemen. And as you heard first, and I'm sure other people may have said it, but not as publicly and as initially as Sean Ross Sapp, it seems the UFC has now agreed they would love to see heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic take on light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier. But before we kick things off, I saw your tweet about Enzo Amore. What is going on with that?
Oh my God, that's probably one of the biggest, craziest, definitely the messiest story I've ever covered in my entire life. He's got some rape allegations that led to WWE firing him. He didn't let them know. We're going to have more on that. We've got the full story on Fightful.com. Myself and Jimmy Van will talk about it at length tomorrow on the Listen Ya Boy podcast. I have a couple of news update videos. And in this Friday's Fightful Wrestling Weekly, usually I drop about 1,000 words worth of exclusives, Fightful news, behind-the-scenes stuff that a lot of websites won't give you. That's going to be a heavy, heavy part of that because I've got some information that I haven't put out there yet.
So, lots to discuss. Where do you want to take it from here?
There's so much, but okay. There's a lot to get to. We got UFC Charlotte this weekend. We got pros picks there. Shevchenko speaking out. Joe, I'm going to kind of pitch this to you. And, I'm not always up for super fights and things like that. Not always. But the way that several divisions are constructed right now, I think UFC on International Fight Week, or maybe sooner, they could have 3 super fights in one night. And bill this as like their, they could say, biggest event ever. I'm taking a look at things, and I say Stipe Miocic. I don't see a challenger ready for him. Miss me with all the Cain Velasquez stuff. I see Daniel Cormier. I don't see a challenger ready for him. Gustafsson isn't healthy, and he can't prove that he will stay healthy. If he does get healthy, sure. But Daniel Cormier has said, I don't want to fight him. He doesn't sell pay-per-views with me. We shit the bed with that one. So no challenger there. I would do that fight. Chris Cyborg, or at least whoever's running her social media today, has come out and said, I want to fight Amanda Nunes in July. Well, hot dog, make that fight because neither one of those divisions has a challenger. Outside, you could say Megan Anderson, that ain't going to sell a dime. You're not going to sell with that one. Bantamweight, Raquel Pennington, I would let her recover fully. And then you have this other fight. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson says that he would like to fight TJ Dillashaw in July. We've not heard him say that before, Joe. We've not heard him just come out and say, yeah, give me TJ. He's saying it now. I think this could go down as one of the most loaded UFC shows ever. Now, we all see how those end up sometimes, but I think the time is right to put on this like super fight card. Well, the time will be right in about 5.5 months. But man, you have 3 ready-made ones, and in that time, you're going to let the division hash themselves out a little bit. Tyron Woodley has said he would like to come back around July. I would try to push that to maybe June, get him a title defense in there. and then you can fit something else in May, and you're not missing a beat here. You're not really missing out on a lot. With 6 divisions essentially held up, they can make it work. I really, really believe so.
Normally, I would say I don't think that's a good idea because you never want to tie up one division. You're asking to tie up 6 divisions. The way these divisions are, I agree. I agree because they need to play themselves out. We need to see contenders in all 6 of these divisions because right now, the champions in these divisions, maybe TJ Dillashaw, you can make an argument, does have a fighter or two available. Demetrius Johnson, obviously, you take a look at Cejudo as an example, but yeah, if they were to announce this, I wouldn't have a problem with it whatsoever. Will they do it? I'm going to say no. 3 championship fights on one card, it's always risky, like you said. I love the idea, though. 3 super fights. Obviously the bigger fighters would have to put their titles on the line, or make it even cooler. Catchweight fights. 3 catchweight fights. See if Cyborg can actually drop down to 140. Stipe won't be able to do anything, so that'll have to be a heavyweight fight.
I think, if they put titles on the line, Nunes is going to 145, then Miocic will fight at heavyweight against Cormier, and then obviously you would want to do 125 for Mighty Mouse, because that TJ Dillashaw said he could make the weight, but if not, then 130 there.
Yeah, everyone understands the whole Cain Velasquez thing. No, it's, if you watched any of our podcasts in the last year and a half, anytime the word Cain Velasquez comes up, Sean Ross Sapp immediately goes into his it's not even rhetoric, it's fact. It's absolute truth in terms of Cain Velasquez, who we all know could have been, should have been, would have been one of the greatest of all time, simply cannot stay healthy enough to be consistent and compete. Because right now, looking up and down those heavyweight rankings, he's the only guy that would remotely make me interested in a fight. I guess I'd like to see a rematch with Ngannou, but Ngannou's got to go out there and win at least 1 or 2 more and prove that he's a grappler as well, or that he can sustain being taken down to the ground and merging back up and putting a hurting on someone. His cardio, I know, Sean, you mentioned it on Saturday's post-fight show that he's at the Institute. He's their perfect project, like a movie being scripted. But in my opinion, since he's been there, you would figure his cardio would have been up to speed by now. The most disturbing thing in everything that I saw or that I heard from Francis Ngannou was post-fight when he said, "I underestimated Stipe Miocic." That was, and he's an honest guy. Francis is just an honest guy. He's going to just call it like it is. That is not something I would have recommended he say, but the fact that he said it means there's facts behind it. How do you possibly underestimate Stipe Miocic? You know what he brings to the table.
Well, it's like I mentioned to you on our post show, which you guys can check out at FightfulPods.com and FightfulMMA.com. He has a weird demeanor, man. Like when I talked about how he met Joel Embiid, and his first reaction to meeting another successful native of his country in America, which doesn't happen a lot, was, I should fight this guy. And like you could tell that Embiid was like, is he serious or not?
Now, what's he doing? What's he talking about? That makes no sense.
That. He's a different kind of dude, and that's okay. I mean, and he's 31 years old. He is not done near the top of this division. No way, no how. He's just got to work on the cardio, and he's in the right place to do it. That UFC Performance Institute, you're gonna have Forrest Griffin with his lab coat on, showing him some sort of technology. Have you seen those videos where like Forrest Griffin is like showing fighters this stuff? You want to talk about a guy that's paid off for them. Like, they fired the Chuck Liddells and the Matt Hugheses and all those people. Forrest Griffin seems very, very committed to his job, and the people that I've spoke to said that he is a great resource there because, he performed at a very high level, and I think that he's a really great resource because he made something out of maybe a little less than what a lot of other guys had. So, kudos to that. But I think that the Performance Institute will prove very valuable to Ngannou moving forward, but it's what we've seen before, guys who have that one-punch knockout power and can't take it into the later rounds. However, there are still a plethora of options for this guy. Like, they're not going to go back to Curtis Blades, but you can run a Mark Hunt fight. Which, I mean, if Mark Hunt beats Curtis Blades, you could throw him in a title fight. I don't know if the UFC would be willing to do that, considering the volatile nature of their relationship. But like you said, underestimating a Stipe Miocic? What? Before this, the man, 5 straight, had knocked out Mark Hunt, Arlovsky, Verdum, Overeem, Dos Santos. Man, why would you? No.
And you take a look at first of all, you look at his striking skill set. His record proves it, that he's a fantastic knockout artist, and he can take it and he can give it. Underestimated, we all knew, even before Stipe became world champion, when I interviewed him back in the day and I watched his fights beforehand, he's got wrestling. And in this fight with Ngannou, I'll talk about that knee tap takedown over and over and over, the way he set it up and how he transitioned from one attempt to a second attempt. I think it was a single to a knee tap, and he executed it perfectly against a monster of a human being who I believe weighed in at 263 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Like, Ngannou was a monster, and in a real fight, Ngannou was able to pull it off. It wasn't even wrestling. There was a threat of getting punched in the face, hooked in the face, uppercut to the face, knee to the face, something, and he was able to pull it off. Miocic is a bad man. He is the baddest man on the planet, and technically speaking, he's not a brawler. He's very technical with everything he does. So the fact that anyone from Ngannou and Ngannou's camp underestimated that is sort of beyond me. You live and learn. I get that. You live and learn. But, even back in the day, Tito Ortiz, when he fought Frank Shamrock, was the biggest lesson he ever learned that changed his life was cardio. He understood the importance of cardio, stamina, to be able to be explosive. George St. Pierre told me a long time ago the importance of recovery in rounds while you're competing versus in between rounds, understanding how to be explosive with your technique, if that's the type of fighter that you are, unless you're a methodical fighter, almost like an Edson Barbosa. Khabib is one guy that we've seen over and over again. We've seen him deal with a bit of adversity in that Michael Johnson fight. He got clipped a few times with Barbosa, right? But he's never been on the opposite end of punishment, really. I'd like to see that happen. And maybe with this Tony Ferguson fight, we're going to see it happen. Maybe we won't. Maybe he's just that dominant.
What did you make of the Miocic taking the belt away from Dana and putting it on his coach thing?
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Right after the fight, he took the belt from Dana and put it on his coach, gave it to him. Still some, he downplays it so much. And like I said, I've mentioned this about other fighters, squeezing blood from a stone, that James Lynch interview. And man, if James Lynch can't get something out of you, then you're not trying, because James Lynch can get something out of everybody. He'll find an angle. He'll talk to you about Netflix to soften you up, just anything he can to relate. And Miocic's I don't care about that. I don't look forward. I don't do any of that. I don't want to say punch drunk, but that's kind of the state that he speaks in sometimes. But then he does something like that so quickly and cerebrally after a 5-round war with Francis Ngannou. And I'm okay, you were thinking about that. You were looking forward to that. There was something going on there. I think there's maybe some beef still going on.
Oh, I think so. I think I don't think it'll ever go away. I think I told you in the post-fight show, whatever agreement or deal they came up with to get this fight done, I won't be surprised. And I'm never one of that guy. I've never been that guy to say, once I sign on the dotted line, I will not renegotiate until the terms of my contract have expired. But in terms of fighting and being a pro fighter, Stipe Miocic now, whatever deal he's had with the UFC, if he's not happy with it, and he went in and fought the guy that pretty much everybody thought was going to be the next world champion, the way especially how he was promoted and stuff like that, and he goes in and destroys him, beats him handily, all right, what do we got? Now, can Stipe Miocic? I know this is a huge what if and a huge hypothetical, Sean. But what options does Stipe Miocic really have other than the UFC or going to Ryzen? Because he can't go to Bellator. We all know what Bellator does with their heavyweight division, right? The best heavyweights in the world are in the UFC.
Justin Wren was not announced as an alternate.
Yeah.
What the hell are you all doing? Bobby Lashley also not announced as an alternate. Both surprising to me, but I think there's some issues there as well. Now, I'm sitting here wondering, what options does Miocic have to fight? If had Stefan Struve beat Volkov, you could just go with him. That's natural. He's knocked out Miocic in the past, but could you imagine if he did it again?
Oh my God, imagine.
Oh my God.
Every fighter has that one guy.
I'm telling you, Brock Lesnar would come back and they would book that fight in a heartbeat. They could make Brock Lesnar UFC heavyweight champion again because Brock Lesnar would beat Stefan Struve. I fully believe. If Brock was 50, I think he would beat Stefan Struve. just because of the stylistic matchup, because Struve doesn't use his reach and Brock gets under people's hips really well. My God.
Guys, don't forget, live chat, top right of your screen. By all means, give us your thoughts, give us your assessments, give us some questions. We'll try and get to them as much as we can. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
This heavyweight division, though, needs some help. Like, this is why I wonder, like, why didn't they sign like a Blagoy Ivanov when he was available? Maybe some visa issues. I don't know. But there are a lot of good heavyweights they just pass on when. Andrei Arlovsky is still in your top 15. You need some help.
Yeah, well, it's always a scary thing for any promoter, especially the UFC, when you have a division that isn't truly that deep, and you've got a champion that just beats everybody. Right? It's not like there's fluctuations in the division where you could still fight this guy or you could fight that guy or this one or that one, and there's always a fight to be made when the division doesn't have as much depth as you think it does, and the fact that some of the fighters aren't exactly on winning streaks, you got problems. And so it's from a matchmaking perspective, I feel for Sean Shelby in the UFC, not easy, but something's got to get done. I mean, Stipe, like you said, he's not doing himself any favors. The fact that he doesn't want to go out there and promote himself, like he should have been on every single talk show circuit leading up to this fight and returned to every single one of them afterwards to say, yep, I did it.
Yep, I completely agree. The
baddest man on the planet world tour. No pun intended. Lots of puns intended, right?
What do you think of this UFC Charlotte card? We might as well just go ahead and talk about it.
Well, I mean, after you come off a UFC 220, you've only had, not that card was fantastic. I'm talking about the whole Saturday evening experience when you had Bellator as well. You had so much MMA, and I made a point of it that we watched so much mixed martial arts in a 6-hour period that I almost forgot what we watched because we're flipping channels so much that now we get to this card here, and you think to yourself, Jacare Souza taking on Derek Brunson, fair fight. I'm a huge Jacare fan, looking forward to it. This is a rematch. Bermudez Andre Fili is your co-main event.
Solid fights up top. Right. Nothing that's going to reach out and grab casual fans, which is a far cry from the Fox cards they used to put on. And here's the thing, Joe. Fox is probably going to have to step in and offer them more money for this second deal. Well, I mean, of course they will because of inflation and things like that. But the first UFC on Fox show was Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos.
Yeah.
This one, in the contract year, is Jacare versus Brunson. And all due respect to Derek Brunson and Jacare Souza, they're both great fighters. This ain't what it used to be. I mean, you used to get like Ben Henderson and Nate Diaz in a title fight on Fox and stuff like that. But a good fight nonetheless. I think it's a rematch that's okay to make. It's been, 5.5 years, and Derek Brunson's a much different fighter. He finishes everybody but Anderson Silva, and either that or he gets finished. First round, all except for that Anderson Silva fight in the last 3 years. He is a very exciting fighter. Got wins over Lyoto Machida on his record, Lorenz Larkin. How do you think this one goes? Because I don't see it going the same way it did in 2012 when Jacare just beat him in under a minute.
Just a flip side to your argument, and I see people talking about it right now in the live chat regarding the TV deal. It's a TV deal year for the UFC and Fox. Could this be a foreshadowing of things to come where, this deal with Fox isn't going to happen? The UFC is going to move to another network. So why am I giving you ratings?
Well, you're giving them ratings because they're giving you money. That's supposed to be how it works. But UFC got the money and then we're like, whatever. And because of that, they're still going to get an increase. Because live sports is just premium. And it's premium because a lot of people don't DVR it. That's the crucial thing here. The reason why live sports does so well on rights fees is because advertisers believe that people have to watch it then. And that's true. I don't DVR football games unless I have to. I don't DVR MMA unless I have to. Now, granted, that's a different situation than football. I don't cover football for a living. But I sit through those commercials. I mean, I can't tell you how many songs and products I'm familiar with because of these shows, these sporting events. So that's why they're going to get an increase. But from a technical standpoint, like, I think I believe it's the benefit is on Brunson's side at this point. Jacare getting a little bit older, and he showed it in the Whittaker fight. But I mean, Whittaker is something special. But that's not to say Derek Brunson isn't something special. When he fights, like when he I don't want to say when he doesn't abandon caution, because sometimes he does and it works in his favor. But man, it's tough to say that too, because Jacare handled Tim Boetsch and Vitor Belfort with ease too. So
I still believe in Jacare Souza, really do. I still think he's got what it takes, and I think I know that he's getting a little older, but the fact of the matter is he lost to Robert Whittaker, and Robert Whittaker is the middleweight champion of the world. So, you know, that was, we go back to when this show, when this site first kicked off, and how much of a believer you were of Robert Whittaker, and how much I was like, he's good. I believed when he was on the Ultimate Fighter in Australia, he's fantastic. But that, you know, I don't know, on middleweight, we'll see how he does. Well, he did absolutely fantastic to become the champion of the world, albeit interim, but now he's officially the champion of the world. So I still think Jacare has it, man. I really do, or at least I don't think Derek Brunson has enough to give Jacare major problems. It's a 5-rounder. I don't think it's going to happen the way it happened in the first time. Although don't be surprised, because once Jacare gets that takedown and gets you down on the ground, it's the stopwatch is on, man. He's that good. I just think that Jacare does have enough to pull off the victory. I'm just taking a look at the odds right now. Jacare, and they're not really that far apart. Jacare is the favorite. He's minus 155. Brunson's plus 135. I still think Jacare can pull this off.
Oh, I do too. I don't put it past him. I'm leaning towards Brunson. I'm like 55-45 Brunson at this point. Just because I think that he knows in order to beat Jacare Souza, he's going to have to overwhelm him and knock him out and prevent the takedown. Because if Jacare Souza ends up on Brunson's back, that's it. That's a wrap. Call it a night. And he's going to be the type of fighter that can fight for a while doing that, working to get people's back a lot like Damian Maia does. Then we have Dennis Bermudez versus Andre Fili. We have an interview with Fili coming up this week. Fili, an inconsistent fighter. He's win-loss, 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 win. But, I mean, he's been an exciting fighter. And he's facing a guy in Dennis Bermudez who, also inconsistent. He's consistently inconsistent. Couple of wins, couple of losses, couple of wins, couple of losses. But, I mean, the guys that he's fighting are like Darren Elkins and Korean Zombie and Jeremy Stevens, Ricardo Lamas, people like that. But he does have trouble against higher-level guys. I don't think Andre Fili is necessarily in that elite level that he runs into trouble with, though.
Yeah, I mean, I like this fight here. I'm going to assume the youth advantage goes to Andre Fili, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's something to pay attention to. I like the fight. I think these guys are going to, bite down on their mouthpieces, and as soon as the referee steps out of the way, it's going to be bombs away. It's generally speaking, in that situation, the faster fighter wins, but Bermudez packs a lot of power. I think Fili is faster at this stage of their careers, and Bermudez has that power. He fights until he passes out. He fights until he gets knocked out, right? I like this fight. And it's exact same odds as the Jacare Brunson fight, obviously with the favorite right now being Dennis Bermudez. I'm actually, like you, you're going for the underdog in the main event. I'll go with the underdog in the co-main event. I like Fili in this fight.
Yeah, I like Fili too. It's just that trend of history and like who Bermudez tends to have trouble with and who he doesn't have trouble with. This is another 55-45 to me. This is a pretty good matchup, I think, a solid one. Jordan Rinaldi, Gregor Gillespie, people watching on the Fox card they're just gonna go, who?
Yeah.
A guy who is 1-1 against a guy who is 3-0 in the UFC. Now, Gillespie, probably a guy they want to push a little bit. He's a New York native. He's coming off of a fight of the night against Jason Gonzalez that he won. Previous to that, a 21-second knockout that you saw live against Andrew Holbrook that won a performance of the night. So I get the feeling that they see this as a showcase fight for Gillespie. However, Rinaldi, his record's a little misleading, that 13-5 record, because he's been on a very big hot streak. I'll tell you this, though, and he's got a win over Dennis Bermudez back in the day.
Yeah.
And that win back then, for a guy that was 4-0 to have that type of win over Dennis Bermudez, that says a lot about the potential that he had. He's been in there with the likes of Brian Ortega, so he's seen some top-level talent. However, Gillespie is not Alvaro Herrera. He is not going to get caught in a Von Flue choke. I can guarantee you that won't happen.
Yeah, I like the fight. I think you're right. I think it's a showcase fight for Gregor Gillespie. The fact that he's from New York is always wonderful for the UFC in terms of building up talent, and not that they need local names to sell out in New York. People will find any excuse on the East Coast to travel to New York anyways. And there's enough of a population base where the UFC can tap into. But to have a local guy, which would definitely cheer up the crowd, and he would continue on this run that he's on right now. He's undefeated, is he not? Yeah, he's 10-0. So this would, if he wins this fight, it's 11-0. So you can start making some arguments for this guy. Like, where does he belong in this division? Right? He's got talent, he's got skills, and he's undefeated. So he's on the Fox card. But like you said, people are going to be like, who?
We also have Drew Dober versus Frank Camacho. Frank Camacho being kind of forced to move up in weight in this one. This fight, another one, I'm wondering why on the main card. And then there is a difference here because you have Bobby Green and Eric Koch. That's going to be a banger.
Yep.
You've got Randa Marcos, ranked UFC fighter, on the prelims. You have Caitlin Chikagan, who is a number 11 ranked fighter, on the prelims. Just kind of puzzling to me. Like, why would you got Mirsad Bektic, top 15 fighter?
I really want to see how he looks against Pepe, because after that fight with Bektic and Darren Elkins, that's a fight that would just suck the life out of you as a human being, to think to yourself that I had this guy beat and he beat me. Like, how do you deal with that? So it'd be interesting to see how he comes back. I'm really paying attention to Mirsad at this show here.
Yeah, and both of these guys ran into Darren Elkins, so they at least have that in common. But I mean, Bektic is coming up against a guy, Pepe, who for a while, like, it looked like he was going to get bounced out of the UFC in like 2013. He went on this awesome winning streak where he just put on these crazy performances. When he beat Lahat, Johnson, and Feely back to back, he got $150K in bonuses for those 3 fights. And then he got out of Brazil and hasn't been able to win outside of Brazil since then. So that's a big question to me. Like, how will being out of Brazil play a role in this? Because he's 0-2 outside of there so far. And Mirsad Bektic he's the real deal, in my opinion. Like, he was
heading into that fight with Elkins, we were like, this is it, man. This guy's going to continue his run up the featherweight rankings and get himself a title shot. Oops. Look at Elkins now, right? Mm-hmm. Elkins is just on the cusp of getting a title shot. Who would have ever said that?
Yeah, no doubt. And he was like 4-0, 5-0 heading into that in the UFC. So I look for Bektic to win, but I think that Pepe, he doesn't want to risk losing 3 of 4, especially after he's done that before and was given like a second chance that a lot of people might not get. So I'm looking for Bektic and Pepe to really put on something special. Dober and Camacho, maybe not. I am very interested to see how Camacho performs at that welterweight, because he is kind of being forced to move up, which, okay, cool, good. But Bobby Green, Eric Koch is one that I can't wait for. Eric Koch at one point looked like he and Poirier were looking like two of the futures of like lightweight and featherweight and stuff like that, and it has not worked out for him. He has had trouble. For a long time he's had trouble staying in the cage. He fought once in 17, once in 16, 0 times in 15. He didn't fight at all in 2012. Like, he's never fought more than like a couple times in a 16-month period. And if I remember correctly, wasn't he slated to face Jose Aldo at one point?
Yep, it was. I remember interviewing Eric way back when, in and around that time, and it was funny. He showed me a picture of what he looks like in between fights if he lets himself go. He was over 200 pounds.
Oh no, that's
dude. He had this belly, and we were laughing about it. And he's like, "I got the best trick for you." He goes, "If you ever want to lose weight real quick, this is what I do whenever I want to lose weight." And we're just talking, going back and forth, back and forth. This is when he starts getting back down to fight shape and stuff like that. He goes, "But you want to see?" He goes, "Doesn't work for everybody, but for me," he goes, "I literally, this is hilarious, Sean. You're not going to believe me because you understand weight cutting."
Yeah.
He lathers himself up in baby oil.
Yeah.
And gets into a hot bath.
Yeah, I've heard it. Yep.
And just pores open up and just starts sweating it all off. I'm like, what? He's like, baby oil, Joe.
See,
baby
I would
oil.
assume that if anything, baby oil would clog the pores because it's an
Apparently
oil.
It doesn't.
Wow.
Yeah. So crazy. I'm not that I'm going to sit there and go take a bath with baby oil right now, but yeah,
Maybe.
Good for you,
hey,
Eric.
Your boy has been dropping the weight. I had
nice.
a couple of weeks without a fridge, as I told you. My fridge.
Yeah.
The week after our gas ran out, that's expensive. That's a $600-700 American filling up your gas tank. Then your home gas tank, rather, not my car gas tank. Although my Jeep, it ain't far off to fill up my Jeep. But then a pipe busted. Then right after that, fridge died. We got a new fridge finally after 2 weeks. During that entire period, I thought that I ate bad before that. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to clean up my eating. No, I felt like I felt terrible. And then my mini fridge died in the middle of all that. So I couldn't even bring home stuff. Yeah, I keep a mini fridge in my office. It died in the middle of all that. Probably because I loaded it too full of stuff. I couldn't even get stuff to bring home like for dinner that night and cook. So it was a lot of like ordering out and ramen noodles and Easy Mac and stuff like that. And your boy got up to 195. I once wrestled at 149.9 back in the day. Now, it is very weird for me. I was talking to my coach because me and my coach wrestled at the same weight. And we didn't know anything about weight cutting back then. We learned, but we were like, it's weird to think that we were human beings at 6 feet tall that existed at 149 pounds. Now, metabolism and age play a big role in that, but man, maybe I needed some baby oil.
Yeah. Ever tell you the story about Jeff Joslin after making weight at one of the TKO events or UCC events? This is way back before even sports science was a real thing.
Tell me.
He would sit there, and I remember him weighing in, and I think it was the fight against John Fitch, which he beat John Fitch, by the way. If you ever get a chance to watch that fight on YouTube, he beat John Fitch. One of the controversial fights you will ever see with a referee and a fighter, with John Fitch basically saying timeout in the middle of a fight and the ref giving it to him, and then the fight continues. But at the weigh-in, I think it was against Fitch, I just see him there with a grocery bag and something, and he's got this fork going in this grocery bag and just eating away. I'm like, what's he doing? I said, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just, slowly putting the weight back on. I said, what are you eating? He was eating a full, not a half, not a piece, a full strawberry cheesecake.
My God.
Just one bite at a time. He would wait 3 minutes and have another bite.
Yeah.
And until he was done. I was like, and I look back at that now and I'm thinking, wow, because Jeff Joslin right now, if you see him, like I saw him, I forgot when it was, but I just said what's up and we're just joking around. I give him a shot to the abdomen. It's like punching my bookcase. I'm like, dude, you're still like ripped. It's like, I train every day, man. I got to teach every day. I got the gym going. I'm like, holy, if he didn't have those concussions, that fight with Koscheck was that was a bad strategy as is, but he would have been a star coming out of Canada, man, big time.
Yeah, man, like one day we'll tell some good old weight cutting stories on this show, but my God, I don't miss it. Bobby Green and Eric Koch, though. Eric Koch, the benefit of Eric Koch is like, what are you going to throw at him that he hasn't seen before? Now, that doesn't mean he's going to win. He ran into Clay Guida, a very motivated Clay Guida, it looked like, in June. But he's fought Poirier, he's fought Lamas, he's fought Asuncao, he's fought Chad Mendez. So what are you going to throw at him? But Bobby Green always shows up to fight, but this, if he loses, this could be it. This could be it.
Unfortunately.
He doesn't have a win in his last 4 fights. He has a draw in his last one, and it was a fight of the night. And I know that they like him because he does come to fight. But he is not on that 2011 to 2014 winning streak. And it's funny because the one thing I always associate him with is fighting Dan Lozon at Affliction Day of Reckoning.
Yeah.
I remember when he fought at Day of Reckoning, and The guy's still just 31, and that was 9 years ago, Joe.
Yeah,
Wow.
Affliction was 9 years ago. That's really dating us. Oh my goodness. I just like Bobby Green, man. I forgot who he was fighting. And it was akin to when I was interviewing him one time. He's one of those guys that always answers with yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. And I'm like, dude, we're not in the military, man. You don't have to yes sir me ever. But I get it. It's fine. And I think in the middle of a fight, I don't know if he was talking to Dana in the middle of a fight, and he kept saying yes sir, yes sir. Or Dana told him to just focus on your fight. Yes, sir. And he went back and started fighting. I'm like, what are you doing? Right. But I like Bobby Green, man. Both these guys are good guys. But hey, man, this is the fight business. You know, as Kamaru Usman reminds me all the time at Titan, this is the face punching business. And these guys are going to be there to punch each other in the face because there's a lot at stake. There's jobs at stake here. There's rankings at stake here. We'll see what happens, man. But I'm looking forward to this fight. I'd rather see it on the main card. But if it's the prelim headliner, I get it.
Yeah, I love this fight. I think it's just a great fight. You also have Caitlin Chikagan against Mara Romero. You say it. You say it. You're the Italian.
Mara Romero Borella.
Hot dog. I'm not going to say her name at all. Just at all. Caitlin Chikagan's got a lot of promise. It's funny because I remember, like, I feel like I added her on Facebook in 2014 to inquire about an interview because she was a very good up-and-coming amateur fighter. And at that point, I covered a lot of amateur fighters. And then, boom, literally, like 2 years later, she's fighting in Madison Square Garden for the UFC. I was like, well, damn, man. Like 2.5 years later, I was like, well, she has also fought at flyweight in the past. So that's something that I would look for her to really embrace because, I mean, she was fighting at, like, what, 135 prior? So now she's got this flyweight opportunity like she does this Saturday. I'm very, very excited to see how she performs.
Yeah, well, those 3 women's fights in general, are you surprised they're not on the Fight Pass?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I thought you would bring it up, but for those that don't know, Sean and I often discuss. Sean believes or has facts that there's some freaks out there that only watch women's MMA, and the UFC puts women's MMA purposely on UFC Fight Pass, so these individuals will continue to order UFC Fight Pass and watch them. But this time around, there are no women's fights on UFC Fight Pass. All 3 of them are on this main card of Fox, or this preliminary card on Fox Sports 1, which is strange to me because there's 6 fights on there, and usually there's only 4. So I'm kind of looking at that thinking there might be some things that are going to be moving around. But I digress. I like this fight here. It's tough to say who's going to win. Let me just take a look at the actual odds here, how they have it broken down here. Yeah, Caitlin is a favorite at -160. Mara Romero Borella is a +140. Yeah, it's even. It's Caitlin, slight favorite there. Again, it all depends on. It's so tough to say with these women nowadays. Even looking at the Randa Marcos fight and Juliana Lima, Randa's a -160 favorite in that fight. I'm really looking forward to that. And before you get into any sort of Justin Kish commentary, I'll let you take care of that.
Her this week. She's good.
Okay,
we have one with Randa Marcos too.
Yeah, I like. That's James. Get that one?
Yeah, of course.
Attaboy, James, because she's not the yeah, good job, James. Love you, buddy. I absolutely love that guy, so good for him.
So also we have George Sullivan. He's trying to get back on track against Nico Price. Nico Price also trying to get back on track, and he started off 3-0 in his career. Like, there's some decent, or his MMA career, there's some decent fights. Juliana Lima, who a lot of people thought was like one of the top girls in the division, hasn't been able to put it together on a consistent basis. Again, when she's run into top trouble, whether it's Kaya, whether it's Joanna, whether it's Carla Esparza, Tisha Torres, she has faced a lot of trouble there. So how she performs against a Randa Marcos, who's top 15, that will be very telling. But, Joe, enough with what we think. Let's hear what the pros think.
For some reason, I feel that Jacare, he hasn't performed the way he used to. Derek Brunson has been on a tear. He's a good friend of mine. He's a grinder. The guy is relentless. He's constantly training. I'm going for my man Brunson, man. Is that going to be in Charlotte? Yep. I think it's on his home turf and everything. I think Bronson's going to take it.
Never even heard of those two guys before.
I think Jacare has a really, really devastating ground game, obviously. When someone is so good at one thing like that, it's hard to make up that gap. You know, it's hard for anyone fighting him. Obviously, they know that he's going to try to take them down and tap him out. It's hard to fill that gap with how good he is to try to play catch-up and have a defense and have an answer for all his attacks. So, you know, I think that's going to be a huge factor, is just how slick he is on the ground. But, you know, Brunson's super athletic and he hits hard, so he can keep it standing and land his punches. I mean, he's got a chance at taking his one. You know, I really don't know who is going to take that one.
That's a great fight, and a lot of people don't realize that it's a rematch. I think Brunson cleaned himself up since that fight a lot, and he was Jacare's been a little bit different lately, so I'm going to lean towards Brunson. I think Brunson's going to actually get the TKO finish.
You know, I think Jacare is going to get that submission. I think second round, first round might not be too hot for him, but I mean, he's really, his ground game is on a different level.
I have Jacare Souza winning that fight. Man, lately he hasn't really been taking guys down. You know, he's been striking with guys, but I just really hope that he gets him on the ground, gets him on his back, and because I've been a Jacare Souza fan since the jiu-jitsu days. So I have him winning the fight. Third round.
That's a good one. I'm gonna have to go with Jacare. I like Brunson's, you know, real powerful, real aggressive, but I think Jacare is just technique wise he's too crisp. You know, he's a monster on the ground, and I think Jacare gets it to his world and then just submits him.
So I never got to see the original fight, and I got to go with Brunson. He's a North Carolina boy. I love the guy. I train with him when I'm down at the beach every year. So I got to go for Brunson. How it's going to happen, I can see him knocking him out. If Robert Whittaker knocked out Jacare and he hurt him bad multiple times, Brunson has that one-punch power that will put anyone away. I mean, I see Brunson winning in the first or second round by knockout.
I'm going to take Souza just because he's probably one of my favorite middleweights. You know, I like his style, I like his personality, and I like his little persona. But yeah, I'll take Souza.
The American. I got to go with Brunson on this one.
That's a good matchup. I think Jacare should pull it, but Derek Brunson, it's tough. Like it's a good fighter. It's a good match that later on for me. So yeah, Derek is one of the guys that I respect from the division, and depends. I mean, depends. Like if Jacare can take him down, for sure he can tire him up a lot. But Derek has a good wrestling, but probably Jacare though.
I honestly think Brunson might take it this time. He's got a huge fire under his ass right now. He's been kind of just running through people and surprising a lot of people. Not that Jacare is a slouch. I mean, that guy, he's basically the most dangerous man on the ground at that weight class. And his striking's pretty good, but I feel like sometimes his striking's hit and miss, and if he's on a night where he's missing, Brunson's definitely going to take advantage of that. So I think I'm going to lean a little more towards Brunson on that fight.
Joe, I spoke about super fights earlier. The original UFC Super Fight belt is for sale.
What the heck is wrong with Vince Pichel?
He's great.
Just put a shirt on, man.
Oh, so many people do that. Like Luis Smoka, like
oh my god,
while he was cooking eggs. It is a little. It does surprise me sometimes. I'm like, man, it's 10 minutes.
Just
10 minutes.
You know, like put a shirt on. Like I don't know. Anyways, when I see the kind of stuff that the UFC Super Fight belt is for sale, it's heartbreaking, man. It's heartbreaking for a variety of reasons. It's a belt that was earned, or it's a belt that, you know, I'm sure there's been UFC belts that have been bought and sold a few times, right? But it's so there could be a variety of reasons. Obviously, financial consideration is one. People do come across hard times and they do want to sell things, but at the same time, there are a lot of people from the UFC's past that absolutely hate the UFC, have disdain for the UFC, and just want to rid themselves of anything that has to do with the UFC. So they'll sell it, anything. So, but again, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart when I see that kind of stuff there, because, you know, it's like even when the hockey players here in Canada have to sell their Stanley Cup winning rings just to make ends meet. It's heartbreaking.
You know who should buy it? Conor McGregor should buy it and wear it out to his next fight. Because by then he'll be stripped of whatever titles he has. So he should just bring that out.
I'm conflicted now with Conor McGregor. It seems I'm always conflicted with Conor McGregor, as of late in terms of what he does. But at some point, like, where do we draw the line? I don't blame the guy. In my opinion, and in watching all of his interviews leading up to all of these fights that he ever had, he consistently said, "I'm young. I want to come in. I want to make my money, and I want to get out." Then do that. Then say you're out. Say you're gone. Right? If you have no intentions of coming back, don't come back. You've made tons of money. That Money Mayweather fight was huge. With the proper investments and the proper money strategy, he never has to work a day in his life ever again. Neither does his girl, neither does his son. They never have to work again. If you invest that money properly, you put it under the right scenarios, that money will continually compound and make money for you. So you never have to fight again. If you don't want to fight, don't fight. No problem. I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to fight either if I made that kind of money. That's the whole point of prize fighting. Get paid as much as you can when you fight. And Conor McGregor was able to do that in a very short period of time, by the way. He was able to do it. Now, you've got 2 belts. One of them you had to give back, or it was stripped of you. It went back to Jose Aldo, and now Max Holloway. And now basically you have the lightweight championship, where people are waiting for you to make a decision to fight. You're not going to fight. So, Tony Ferguson becomes the interim champ. You're still not going to defend it against Tony Ferguson. Khabib Nurmagomedov does what he does against Edson Barbosa. He's the rightful guy, in my opinion, that deserves the #1 title shot. But with Ferguson being the interim champ, that's the fight to make, because Conor's not coming back. If he's not coming back, strip him, and that's it. Call it a day.
It was so weird when Dana White wouldn't answer that. He just wouldn't. He wouldn't give a clear-cut answer. Of course, UFC booking that pay-per-view the same night as NXT TakeOver New Orleans. Joe, that's going to be a psychotic night for me. That pay-per-view we mentioned. Khabib and Tony Ferguson, Rose Namajunas, Joanna 2. Probably the right fight to make there. That goes on while WWE's feeder system essentially is running a major show, their biggest show of the year. Well, probably their second biggest show of the year, the night before WrestleMania. So here's how my schedule looks. I'll have to start watching the UFC show around 6:37. On another screen at about 8, I'll have to pull up NXT TakeOver. Hopefully about 10:15 to 10:30, I will go live with an NXT TakeOver post show that hopefully concludes at about 11:15. Hopefully. Then, while I'm still watching UFC on another screen while I'm doing this show, we will go live, or I will go live probably with James Lynch right after that at 1 a.m. covering this pay-per-view. Madness. Usually UFC stays away from WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah.
It's not a secret that they do. What do you think changed their mind?
I don't know. I don't know unless it's one of those, we're not hiding from no one. We need to make money. We got to make money. Even if it's a little, we got to make money.
Here's a big thing too. WWE's not on pay-per-view anymore. Not to that degree. They are a little bit, but they're running $9.99 on their network. But for all the WWE and UFC saying they're not competition, all that stuff. UFC made it a pretty big habit to avoid WrestleMania weekend for years. No pay-per-view.
I don't blame them. Would you hold an event?
No. If I was a wrestling event, I would hold an event in the same city as WrestleMania to get those people who are there to my show, but that's it. So that's a bit of an odd one for me. I think that Khabib will defeat Tony Ferguson in this fight. I think that Khabib has shown that he can absorb a few punches, and to me, Tony Ferguson doesn't. He couldn't put Lando Venado away. I don't know if he can put a Khabib away. He's saying that he's gonna do it, and Khabib won't touch him. I don't think that's the case.
This fight is so amazing on so many different levels. Khabib Nurmagomedov, clearly, if we were to test him, he's not human. We know that. If anyone wants to argue that, they shouldn't, because he's not human. There's no way you could walk through what Edson Barbosa does and what and take a shot from Michael Johnson the way he does, and just the way his posture and the way he keeps his knees down or up, and his technique hip to hip with his ground and pound is just superhuman. The guy is unbelievable. But Tony Ferguson, let's not kid ourselves. If this fight will go to the ground, and Tony Ferguson has tricks up his sleeve. Tony Ferguson, the one knock I will have on his style, although it has worked for him, not so much in the Land of Veneta fight, although he did emerge victorious, was the almost a nonchalant, cocky, you can't, I'm faster than you, whatever, put my hands down, do that kind of, that's not going to work with Khabib, man. You better be on your bike. What bike did you reference in one of the fights this past Saturday? Newman? No.
It's Peloton.
And that's what Ferguson's got to be on with Khabib Nurmagomedov. Man, you got to be moving, sticking, and moving. Stop, hit, move. Stop, hit, move. Fake, feint. You can't, under any circumstances, have Khabib Nurmagomedov at all. It's like when Ronda Rousey was in her prime. You cannot let her within clinch range and get a hold of you. Khabib Nurmagomedov will hunt you. He is a predator. He will stalk you. He will get you within that black perimeter, outside that black tape, that black perimeter around the cage, so you've got nowhere to go, and he will continue to do so. If he fails for 4 rounds taking Tony Ferguson down, he will continue in the 5th round to do it. And it seems he can walk through anybody's punches. So this is a fantastic fight. I want to see if this fight does go down to the ground, what tricks Tony Ferguson may have up his sleeve to nullify anything and everything that Nurmagomedov brings on the ground, or will he be just another victim and take an absolute ass whooping from those fists and that fury of ground and pound that Nurmagomedov brings, man? I can't wait.
We have some drug-related news. Francisco Rivera suspended 4 years for basically trying to alter, hide information, lying. He's done. I mean, I saw in an MMA Junkie article, because I had a lot of people saying he was a free agent, and they had a dead link in their story that said, well, he said he was a free agent in December 2017. I haven't been able to find that. If anybody can send that to me, please let me know. If he is a free agent and he's free, then maybe he'll end up in Ryzen, because they need some guys to face like a McCall and a Horiguchi and people like that. So I wouldn't doubt that, but I think he was done in the UFC anyway. He was like 1-4 in his last 5 fights, 35, 36 years old, hadn't fought in a year and a half, so done. See ya.
The worst part of getting that news, when I saw the news initially, because I think I was driving, and I saw an alert pop up on my phone, and I kind of looked down while I was driving. I'm like, I don't want to see this right now. I thought it said Jimmy Rivera.
Every
4
time
years.
Something about Francisco Rivera comes up, I'm like, oh no. And then I remember, oh wait, that's the Rivera that used to be good, and Jimmy's the one that's good now.
I tripped out, man. I was like, I think I need to pull over and read the story like right now. This is not making sense. And then I realized who it was, and I'm like, yep.
Yeah, so confusing, man. Like, well, and I don't know why. Like, it's just that last name. So often in MMA, you can associate a last name with a person, and you don't even have to think twice. But yeah. Anderson Silva denies steroid use, says he has never taken them before. I can't believe him.
He's an enigma, man. Always has been, always will be. We've heard Dana say it many times. He's a special guy to deal with. He's like an artist, as an example. I've interviewed the guy dozens of times, spoken to him at the MGM, Mandalay Bay. We've had conversations in the valet, just shooting the breeze. And I've always liked the guy, but I was always under the impression that, this guy here, I remember when he showed up one time at Sportsnet, Sean, to do, I don't know if he was fighting Cote at the time or who he was fighting, but he literally, it's not saying much, but I was tiny next to him. I said, how much do you weigh right now? He's like, around, kind of did his, the Anderson Silva head bob. He's like, around 230 pounds. I said,
wow.
What did you say? He's 230 pounds. I said, you cut down to 185.
Do you think he was being honest? Because, he has a pretty stellar troll.
Dude, I'm telling you, from his pec to his lat, it was huge. I'm not saying it was the size of my shoulder to shoulder chest, but I was like, holy Jesus. And you're wearing a suit right now. If you're damn, brother, you're huge. Like, holy smokes, man. You're a big man. You fight at 185. Okay, so I believed him, right? And again, in conversations back in the day, you used to hear it all the time: George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva. When are we going to see this George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva? Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, blah, 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 blah. And I kept telling people over and over and over again, people wanted to know why. I said, you are not going to see that fight. You're never going to see that fight. You mark my words, you're not going to see that fight. And lo and behold, sooner rather than later, or later rather than sooner, he got pinched the first time. And guess who one of the first people that I was in contact with? They contacted me right afterwards, George St. Pierre, and we had a conversation about it. And, it was one of those things where he firmly believed that, it's not the right time to do the fight, but this is not looking good. There's something wrong with this guy. And you and I have talked about the eye test, right? And I mentioned Luke Bernardi all the time, who was on the Holy Smokes podcast way back when. I don't have that eye. I don't have that eye to determine when someone, male or female, is on juice. Luke can see it, and even Luke told me.
I do in pro wrestling, but in MMA it's way harder, because the thing is, in pro wrestling it was almost exclusively done for size. Like, that's why you did it. But in MMA it's done for performance, so you don't know if they're taking like a little something else. They might be taking something that makes them smaller or more lean. In pro wrestling, they wanted stuff that would make their traps grow out of their ear holes, like stuff like that. Like,
yeah.
Before we get in this brief Bellator prediction, what do you make of Paul Daley going off on Bellator and saying he's going to fight his contract out? I mean, wow.
Are you surprised? I'm not.
No, I'm not really.
No, I mean, he does have options.
Yes,
he does have options. That may not be the UFC, right? Or you never know, right? That would never say never, but he does have options. It's not one of those things where he can't go compete somewhere else, and clearly he's not happy. And it's Paul Daley. This is a guy that even during regular press conferences didn't care what he said. Clearly after fights, he continues fighting. This is a guy that's going to do what he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants. He's going to speak his mind. Clearly something must have happened with Bellator where he's continually not being, appreciated. He's going to speak his mind. I'm not surprised. Are you?
No, God, no. God, no. I saw a story where Bellator has surprised Alimale McFarland with a new championship belt after her house fire. Well, I mean, nice, but yeah. She's a champion. She's got to have a title belt. Like, of course. Of course. By the way, ya boys at Fightful.com, FightfulMMA.com had the skinny on, like, Bellator title plans, like, a year and a half ago. So go visit us. We got tons of exclusives over there. Also, use our forums. I want to hear from you guys on the forums. Also, I want to see you guys in those live discussions. Even if you all just pop in when they go live and make your predictions, come over there and talk to us. We want to hear from you. This Bellator show on Friday, I'll be doing quick results of it as David Tease will be out for the NXT show. Not a lot, really. Lorenz Larkin, Fernando Gonzalez. Maybe the winner ends up fighting Rory McDonald, but not really looking forward to this one that much. I think Lorenz Larkin is going to win.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think he's going to impose his will, and he's going to win this one.
We would hope so. I mean, just from all the UFC fans' perspective, it's like, dude, you got to win, man. You got to win a fight. Like, what's going on here, right? So, and he's so talented, man. When that guy swings his hips and just puts that power into those kicks, you would think most people would buckle, but you never know. You never know. I'm leaning with Lorenz, don't get me wrong, but pressure's on, son.
So, also on this show, Tyrell Fortune's fighting. Very excited about that. He's going to win. Kendall Grove is fighting AJ Matthews, 8-7. Kendall Grove's probably going to win. He's also one of my favorite interviews in MMA because he doesn't care. I'm telling you, Joe, and no offense to him, if he didn't have like 6-7 kids running around in the background of his audio all the time, I'd have gotten him for a podcast by now. The man is so funny and so entertaining. Like, he's just, I can't recommend it enough. Also, Syed Awad versus JJ Ambrose. Now, while I'm interested in Tyrell Fortune, and Kendall Grove is a nice name to put on the show, Lorenz Larkin versus Fernando Gonzalez would be a decent co-main event. This is not the card to do. Dig up Stephan Bonner for all I care. Have him fight Justin McCulley. Is that the guy that came out in the mask?
Yeah.
At least that's got a story about it.
Oh, my God.
Come on. Do better.
Too funny. Listen, man. It is what it is with Bellator, man. Let's not kid ourselves. So up and down they go, Sean. Up and down they go.
That's Bellator 193. Robert Whittaker has a staph infection, which, originally we're thinking, man, he's not recovered from that knee injury, which I still don't think he is. But Dana White says, no, he's in really bad shape with a stomach staph infection. So he might not be back for quite a while. So you hate to see an interim title created with such quickness after the situation was resolved. But, it seems like it's justified here. It's just very unfortunate. Because it very much seems like they're trying to make Australia like a very regular territory. Like, they're going there all the time. A few times a year, it seems.
Yeah, you got to do the math for a second. And I've told many Canadians about this all the time that can't seem to figure out when Dana White said Canada is the mecca of MMA. Okay? It was the mecca of MMA until fans stopped showing up to events, until they realized that they kept going to Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver, what they called their 3 tentpole locations, and the attendance continued to drop. It's just the love for the UFC in this country has pretty much went down. So what the UFC does, and what they will always do, and despite my biased opinion, obviously because I'm Canadian and I wish it was still big here, don't get me wrong, I get what the UFC is doing, because I tell people all the time, stop for a second. You own the UFC right now. If you own the UFC, where are you going to hold events? Are you going to hold events in markets that continually show a decline in attendance, or markets that continue to show sellouts, markets that you haven't been to yet, because you're available in like 140 countries, markets that have the availability of commissions or staff or people that you could fly in, that have local official government regulated sanctioning bodies, where you can go and hold events where there's going to be 15 to 18,000 people. Some have stadiums, where you can look at your business, at your P&L, profit and loss statements, and you can say, you know what? We profited X amount of millions on this one. But if we go to Canada, or we keep going to these territories or locations or cities where our profit is, it's there, but it's far less than if we go there in Australia, you're going to go there down under. That's what business is all about. You're talking to a guy who owns 3 different businesses. I had the conversation. For those that don't know, I do a lot of videography with amateur sports teams. Okay, and some of the products and services, Sean, as you know, for those that don't know, that I offer, for me, time is money. If I'm going to be quote unquote at a hockey rink, and you're going to pay me X amount of money to be there, or I can get Y amount of money from another client, guess which one I'm going to take? I want to do business with you, but this client here is giving me 3 times the amount of money you're giving me for 2 hours of my time. That's what the UFC does. They're going to go to Australia over and over again because Perth and Sydney continues to sell out. They're building their talent over there, as opposed to coming to Toronto, Vancouver, and or Montreal, where no one shows up. Now, they've cannibalized their product in Canada. Let's not kid ourselves for a second. But kudos to Winnipeg. Kudos to Halifax for showing up there with attendance. But other than that, I don't blame the UFC, bro. Not at all.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we've got a very, I can say personally, we've got a very large viewer base in Australia. Now, some of that may be the wonderful woman we have on our Tuesday post shows who's from Australia, but we've got a lot of a base there, and UFC has a lot of fighters from there, so I like it. I do, and I hope that Robert Whittaker gets well soon, because as you know, I've been a believer in Robert Whittaker for a long time before he moved up to middleweight. Like, if anything, the move to middleweight made me question it a little bit, but since then, I think he is a ringing endorsement for not cutting that much weight. Like, he went to 170, and he was just a guy. He was just a guy, Joe. But I looked at him, and, you know, I draw on the comparison a million times to how I saw Gerald Harris fight. And the irony is, Gerald Harris didn't need to keep one arm down to get an underhook in because nobody was taking him down. Robert Whittaker, that is a concern of his. He has to worry about the takedown early and often. And there was a streak, Joe, where he went 4-4 in his career, and he never lost after that. He won a fight at 170, and he was like, you know what? I think I'm better at middleweight. And his career, just look at it. Beat Clint Hester, who Clint Hester looked like he was going to be something. Clint Hester looked like a prospect, I thought. TKO'd him, fight of the night. Beat Brad Tavares, performance of the night. Beat Uriah Hall, who on any given night can beat anybody, in my opinion. Beat Natal. Then beat Brunson, fight of the night, performance of the night. Beat Jacare, performance of the night. Beat Romero, fight of the night. On one leg. In my opinion, UFC 213's main event is movie-level stuff. He's facing Ivan Drago, the Cuban Ivan Drago, on one leg. You got to incorporate the Karate Kid in there. Like, Yoel Romero's corner man is over there like, sweep the leg! Sweep the leg, gay Jesus!
You at the beginning of the show, Whittaker is ridiculous. You at the beginning of the show were receiving compliments in our live chat. I've got breaking news. I received a text from a friend of mine, who's very pretty, by the way, Sean Ross Sapp, and she said your co-host looks fantastic with the man bun.
Ooh.
You should continue using it.
Ooh, who is it?
Well, I can't tell you who it is.
Tell Anna Bauer that she can just tell me that on the Tuesday night.
It's not Anna whatsoever. But yeah, you're getting compliments from the opposite sex, my friend. Very good job.
You know, I get trashed by Jimmy Van for it. Like,
why?
Oh, you know him. He doesn't have it. He's not like you, Joe. You've come to terms with it.
I accept anybody and everyone for whatever. Listen, I don't walk in your shoes. I don't pay your bills. You don't pay mine. I respect anyone and everyone, however they look. I like to have fun with it, man. I told you the first time I met Jimmy Van at the office, I didn't know it was Jimmy Van.
Yeah,
because I knew that this was an eccentric millionaire, and I was going to go in there and see this, 3-piece suit, vest, and in walks in this guy with a baseball cap, an Edmonton Oilers sweater, if I'm not mistaken. And he's like, "Hey, Joe, how you doing?" I said, "How you doing? I'm here to see Jimmy." Or so I didn't say it like that, but I said, "Hey, man, how you doing?" He's like, "Oh, it's Jimmy." I'm like, "Hey, Jimmy."
Oh, I learned when I was in Toronto, you never know what a millionaire will look like these days. I think that's kind of cool. That makes me relate to Jimmy Van a lot more. Like, he called me up in spring of last year to talk to me, kind of lure me away from the most visited wrestling website in the world. He talked to me for 10 minutes, and I said, "You were the guy I've been waiting for to start up a site." I was like, "You're the guy." That's why I love my Wednesday show with him so much. But he's gonna have to learn to love this.
Jimmy's the man. No ifs, ands, or buts. I think he's absolutely fantastic.
Because his millions can't do anything about this.
Oh, wow.
I mean, if he threatened to fire me, maybe it would, but
he wouldn't do that.
He knows I'm doing it for a good cause, ultimately. We spoke, or rather James Lynch spoke to Valentina Shevchenko, who will be moving to flyweight, probably, and I think she's going to be doing great at flyweight. Let's hear what she has to say, and of course, James Lynch has non-stop exclusive interviews over at Fightful.com, our YouTube at youtube.com/Fightful. Make sure you all click us, thumbs up, subscribe, hit that little bell for the notifications. That helps too. When they work, it helps. But check out his MMA industry podcast on Thursdays too. He talks to people. He's talked to myself and Joe, both of us. And it's a great way to get an inside look at how MMA media works. But here's James with Valentina Shevchenko.
No, things didn't go your way in your last fight against Amanda Nunes at UFC 215. It was a very close fight. Some people, including myself, thought that you won that matchup. Looking back on the fight, do you feel like there's anything you could have done better in that one?
Of course, after everything, you think, I could do it different way. I could do something differently that I did. But looking back and looking at the fight video, I know exactly that I didn't lose the fight, and I totally not agree with decisions that it make. But what we can do, nothing. The decision already taken, and just focus on my career, for future career, on my next fight. And I'm very happy that I will fight in 125 because I feel this weight class more natural for me, and just focus on it and keep on moving every time forward.
Yes, I agree. What was sort of the reason for moving down to 25? Is it just you feel like it's a better fit for you?
Before it was not option, or you fight 115 or you fight 135. Now we have like more option and to choose like better weight for each fighter. And of course for when I was fighting 135, I was feeling comfortable, and I never cut my weight. I never lost for the fight, so my walk weight, it was right the same weight. And every time like fighting with different size opponents, it's every time you have to think about strategy for the fight, because higher, taller, bigger weight opponents, it's you cannot use only your skills. You have to use your head too. And in 125, I feel like it's a more natural weight class for me. And I was very happy when UFC decided to create this weight class. And I knew that in the future I will fight there.
Is this your first time competing at 125 pounds just in general, like throughout all the combat sports you've done, or is this the first time?
No, I was fighting in my Muay Thai fights in 125 and every time. And then, but it's like in World Championship to fight in, for example, 125, it's a little bit different because you have like an Olympic weight system. You have in the morning weights and afternoon you are fighting. So you have to be in this 125 weight, for example, 1 month to feel you like this is your real weight. But fighting professionally it's different because you can in the same day day of weigh-in to cut down your weight, few kilos or few pounds, then take it back, and on next day like fighting already in like bigger weight. So it's a little bit different. And after few years, my last time what I was fighting in 125, it was 2008.
Oh wow! So
and after 2008, after 2008, I was fighting every time in 130.
Okay.
And
okay.
when when I when I signed with UFC, I went up a little bit, 135.
Okay, that makes sense. It doesn't sound like you have to cut a lot of weight to get down to 125 pounds. Is that accurate?
No, I don't. Now I'm already like after with all training camp. Now I'm 130, and this is the was idea of me how I will cut weight for 125, because I don't like to cut like a lot of pounds, a lot of kilos before the fight on the last week. I don't like it at all. I prefer it with a little bit diet to go down to 130, and the last week just have these 5 pounds to cut, that's it. And so I can feel me more healthy, and I can see my real power that I will have.
Valentina Shevchenko, what a gem. That fight card is decent. Eric Anders and Machida, Dodson, Pedro Munoz, Shevchenko at flyweight. You have Timothy Johnson fighting on that card, top 15 heavyweight. You have Yuri Alcantara and Joe Soto. That's a little underrated fight. Good matchup, in my opinion. Decent card. It is on the 10th anniversary of my wife and I first dating, so I won't be covering it that night, but I will be the next day.
There you go. Yeah, no, it's a fun card. Definitely a fun card. What do you make of the Namajunas Johanna Jacek rematch?
Kind of had to do it. Once you saw Tecia Torres get booked, you knew the writing was on the wall. So I'm not surprised that they did it. Once the Torres fight got booked, I get the feeling they probably told Torres, smartened her up. And, I mean, that was the question. If Joanna was staying at 115, she was getting that fight. If she moved to 125, she was getting whatever fight she wanted there. So that's a big one. Now, here's my question. What do you think of Jessica Eye being ranked at number 10 at flyweight after her split decision win and not winning since, like, the Revolutionary War?
Are we allowed to talk about Jessica Evil Eye?
Don't think so.
Yeah.
So there you go. Jessica Rose Clark at number 7 in those rankings. I'll give you all a quick little update here. Tatiana Suarez at number 15 in the strawweight rankings. Reina Marcos has moved up to 11, curiously, the week before she fights. Joanne Calderwood, number 13. She will be probably out of those and in the flyweight rankings soon. John Vellante debuted in the light heavyweight rankings, re-debuted at 15. That pushed a few people up. Cannonier, Antagulov, Pedro Blachowicz. Brad Tavares popped in the middleweight, top 15. Had a lot of people move up in that one too. Costa, Machida, Jotko, Belfort, Uriah Hall, David Branch. What else we got here? Kamaru Usman, number 9 now, up from 10. Evan Dunham, what year is this? He's number 15 in the lightweight division. Yair Rodriguez drops to number 10, while Jeremy Stevens moves up to 8. Elkins moves up to 9. I still think Elkins should be above Stevens. Matt Lopez debuts in the bantamweight division at 15, as does Oka Sasaki. So there is your rankings update. I haven't been doing the videos on those because those didn't do the numbers, y'all. So I'll do a rankings update every week here on this podcast. But
sorry, what did you say about the featherweight division, Sean? Someone should be ranked higher than who?
I think that Elkins should be ranked higher than Stevens. Jeremy Stevens.
I concur. I think I concur with that. You want him
just one spot above. I mean, Stevens has
leave Korean Zombie where he is.
I mean, he should be above Korean Zombie too.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. And Lamas, he got knocked out, so you can maybe move Elkins up to 6. And I know Swanson got
I believe every bit of it. I believe every bit that Darren Elkins at this point of his life is a top 5, top 6 featherweight.
I think so.
Do. Josh Emmett there at number 4, taking on Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah.
Josh Emmett's the kind of guy that Jeremy Stevens could beat, too. So Jeremy Stevens, who I didn't think belonged in this top 10 as recently as a few months ago, could push his way on up there. He could. It's getting crowded. It's getting interesting. I like it.
It's crazy to see Stevens and Elkins having this resurgence. They've been around, man. They've been around.
Yeah, they have been. A lot of miles on them. Joe, anything else before we go? Obviously, guys, follow us at Fightful Online. We have at Fightful MMA and at Fightful Wrestle. You can follow me at Sean Ross Sapp. Very wrestling heavy right now for reasons, obviously. If you all like wrestling and it kind of got lost, we lost in all the Enzo coverage. We had a great feature from Denny Burkholder on Celeste Bonin, Caitlin. And just go over there. Go to our MMA, wrestling, and boxing sections and click those exclusive bars. And you will see stuff that, a lot of websites won't give us love. A lot of websites are shook by Fightful.com. But we've got a lot of exclusives over there.
Shook and shady.
Shook.
They are shook and they are shady. I apologize to everybody in the live chat. We weren't able to get to a lot of your questions. The only thing I could see right there, I just want to remind Vinny Fernando real quick. He said they threw Yair to the wolves by having him fight Frankie. If you remember, Vinny, especially on this show, there was almost like we were concerned about Frankie Edgar. Like this was it. This was the young buck that was really going to put a hurting on Frankie, or does Frankie have what it takes? Frankie proved us wrong, and now he's back into a title fight. But I remember I didn't think any of us thought that they threw him to the wolves. It's easy to say afterwards. Hindsight's 2020. But I'm pretty, because Vinny, you've been with us since day one. I'm pretty sure all of us were like, man, Frankie's in trouble, and damn did he prove us wrong. So good on him. But I do want to apologize to everyone that did have some questions. I think people were asking me about some Ryzen stories and whatnot, and
sure.
They appreciate my stories. You've been in the game for 20 years. I got stories. I could talk nonstop about some of the crazy antics and things I've seen from pretty much every single fighter under that UFC roster from UFC 79 onwards, even before that, because that was just my first UFC that I covered live. But I got stories from all around this planet, having been into many, many countries involved in this incredible sport. And of course, when you're co-hosting a show with a guy in a man bun that looks like Shawn Michaels, hey man, life is fun, man. Life is fun.
I love it. Guys, Fightful.com. Till next time, we are out.